I'm Natalie Harper, and 4 days before my wedding, I walked into my childhood bedroom to find my dress in ribbons on the floor. Not torn by accident. Cut. Methodically. With fabric shears still lying next to the wreckage like evidence at a crime scene. My sister Vanessa stood in the doorway behind me, arms crossed, wearing that expression I'd seen my whole life. The one that said she'd finally won something I didn't even know we were competing for. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. She didn't apologize. She didn't pretend. She just said, now we're even. What she didn't know was that hanging in my parents' guest closet, still wrapped in plastic with the tags attached, was the $40,000 Vera Wang gown she'd worn exactly once for an Instagram collaboration. The same dress she'd been too precious to let anyone touch. The same dress she told our mother was going into a museum someday. I wore it down the aisle. And when those photos went live, the silence from her account said everything. It started 6 months earlier on a Tuesday morning in March when I was sitting in my studio apartment in the Pearl District, scrolling through sample invitations on my laptop. The rain drummed steadily against the window, that particular Portland rain that feels less like weather and more like a constant companion. I had just signed the contract for the Willamette Valley venue, a small vineyard estate with sprawling oak trees and a view that made you believe in new beginnings. Derek had proposed on New Year's Eve. Nothing extravagant. Just the two of us on the waterfront, watching the fireworks bloom over the river, his hands shaking as he pulled the ring from his jacket pocket. It was simple, understated, exactly us. We'd been together for 4 years, moved in together after 2, built a life that felt sturdy and real. He worked in software development. I was a graphic designer at a small marketing agency downtown. We weren't flashy people. We were the kind who stayed in on Friday nights, cooked together, argued good-naturedly about whose turn it was to take out the recycling. The wedding we were planning reflected that. 60 guests. A string quartet. Dinner under the trees. My dress budget was $2,000, which I was paying off in installments over 8 months from a boutique called Blanc & Co. on Morrison Street. I'd found it 3 weeks after the engagement, a vintage-inspired gown with delicate lace sleeves and a silk charmeuse skirt that moved like water when I walked. The owner, an older woman named Diane, had smiled when I tried it on and said, "That's the one." I can always tell. I should have known Vanessa would make it difficult. She always did. My sister was 2 years older and had spent those 2 years reminding me of it at every opportunity. Where I was quiet, she was loud. Where I chose stability, she chose spectacle. Vanessa had 200,000 followers on Instagram. She posted daily. Luxury hotels. Designer handbags. Aesthetic coffee in white marble kitchens. Her engagement to Blake had been a production, a surprise proposal on a yacht in the San Juan Islands with a photographer hidden behind the mast and a videographer capturing every tear. Her wedding, the year before mine, had cost more than I made in 2 years. It was featured in a regional bridal magazine. She'd worn custom Vera Wang. $40,000 of hand-beaded silk and tulle. She'd posted about it for months. The fittings. The alterations. The debut. She looked stunning. I told her so. I was her maid of honor. I spent the weekend before her wedding steaming her veil, coordinating with vendors, keeping her calm when the florist delivered the wrong shade of blush roses. When I told her I was engaged, she'd smiled tightly and said, "That's great. Don't expect me to do what you did, though. I'm way too busy." I didn't expect anything. That was the lesson I'd learned growing up in her shadow. Expect nothing, and you'll never be disappointed. Our parents lived in Lake Oswego in the house we grew up in, a sprawling craftsman with a wraparound porch and a backyard that sloped down toward the trees. My mother, Carol, had always treated us differently. Vanessa got the compliments, the pride, the social media shares. I got the practical advice, the concerns about my career, the suggestions that maybe I should try harder to be more like my sister. My father, Richard, was quieter, but his silence spoke volumes. He showed up to Vanessa's events. He forgot mine. I stopped expecting them to change. By April, most of the wedding plans were in place. The invitations had gone out. The RSVPs were trickling back. I'd hired a photographer, a woman named Iris who specialized in natural light and candid moments. I'd chosen the menu. Confirmed the flowers. Picked out mismatched vintage china for the reception tables because I liked the idea of nothing matching perfectly, just like real life. Derek and I spent our evenings addressing envelopes by hand, his blocky print next to my careful cursive, laughing about whose handwriting was worse. Vanessa called me once during those months. It was late May, and she wanted to know if she could bring a +1 to the wedding. Not Blake. He was already invited. She wanted to bring Tiffany, her best friend and frequent collaborator, the woman who appeared in half her posts holding a latte or modeling a coordinating outfit. There's limited space, I told her gently. We're keeping it really small. You have 60 people coming, she said. That's not small. It is for us. There was a pause. Then she laughed, sharp and bright. You know, Natalie, not everything has to be some humble little statement. You're allowed to want things. I didn't respond. I'd learned that silence was often the safest answer with Vanessa. The last payment on my dress was due in early September. I made it on a Friday, transferring the final $200 from my checking account and feeling a quiet surge of accomplishment. The dress was mine. Fully paid for. Diane called me that afternoon to let me know I could pick it up anytime, and I told her I'd come by the following week. I wanted to wait until it was closer to the wedding. Some superstitious part of me felt like bringing it home too early might invite bad luck. Derek and I spent that weekend hiking in the gorge, the late summer sun filtering through the canopy of Douglas firs, our hands linked as we navigated the rocky trail. He talked about the honeymoon, a week in a cabin on the coast, no agenda, just us and the ocean. I talked about the ceremony, how I wanted to write my own vows, how I wanted it to feel intimate and true rather than performed. Your family going to behave? He asked as we stopped to catch our breath near a waterfall. I shrugged. Does it matter? He looked at me seriously. Yeah. It does. This is your day, Nat. Not theirs. I kissed him instead of answering. Some questions didn't have good answers. The week before the wedding, my mother called and asked if I could come by the house. She had something for me, she said. A family heirloom. Her mother's pearl earrings. I'd always loved them as a child, small and lustrous, the kind of jewelry that whispered rather than shouted. I told her I'd stop by Thursday after work. That morning, I picked up my dress from Diane. She'd wrapped it carefully in a garment bag, the boutique's logo embossed in gold on the front, and handed it to me with both hands like it was something sacred. You're going to be beautiful, she said. I believed her. I drove to my parents' house with the dress lying carefully across the back seat. The October air had turned crisp, the leaves just beginning their slow shift toward gold and red. I parked in the driveway and carried the dress inside, hanging it on the hook in my old bedroom closet, the same closet that still held a few boxes of my college textbooks and a winter coat I'd forgotten to take when I moved out. My mother was in the kitchen when I came downstairs. She handed me a small velvet box. Inside were the pearls, creamy and perfect. Your grandmother would have wanted you to have these, she said. I thanked her. We talked for a few minutes about the final head count, the weather forecast, whether I needed her to pick up any last-minute items. It was polite. Surface level. The way most of our conversations went. Vanessa wasn't there. She was rarely at the house anymore unless there was a reason, some event or occasion that required the whole family to perform unity for the camera. I didn't ask where she was. I didn't think about her at all. I should have. I left the dress there. It felt safer somehow, keeping it at my parents' house rather than my small apartment where Derek might accidentally see it before the wedding. Superstition again. Or maybe just tradition. My mother said she'd make sure it stayed safe, that she'd steam it the morning of the wedding, that everything would be perfect. I trusted her. That was my first mistake. The next 3 days passed in a blur of final details. Confirming the timeline with Iris, the photographer. Double-checking with the venue coordinator about the setup. Packing for the honeymoon. Derek's parents flew in from Sacramento on Tuesday, warm and excited, and we took them to dinner at a small Italian restaurant in Northeast Portland. His mother hugged me tightly and told me she couldn't wait to officially call me her daughter. I felt the sting of tears and blinked them back. Wednesday night, Derek stayed at his best man's apartment. Tradition. We weren't supposed to see each other until the ceremony. I spent the evening alone, taking a bath, painting my nails a soft blush pink, trying to calm the flutter of nerves in my chest. I texted my mother to confirm what time I should come by in the morning to get ready. She responded immediately. Come by 9. I'll have coffee ready. I fell asleep feeling cautiously hopeful. Maybe this would be the event where my family showed up for me the way I'd always shown up for them. Maybe Vanessa would surprise me. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Maybe my father would tell me he was proud. Maybe my mother would see me, really see me, for once. I woke up Thursday morning to 17 missed calls. My phone screen glowed in the darkness, each notification a small explosion of dread. I sat up in bed, my heart already racing before I even understood why. The calls were all from my mother, starting at 6 in the morning. Then texts. Then more calls. The most recent message, sent just minutes ago, read simply, Natalie, please call me. It's about the dress. My hands were shaking as I dialed her back. She answered on the first ring, her voice high and strained in a way I'd never heard before. Natalie, honey, I don't know how to tell you this. What happened? There was a pause, the kind of silence that stretches and distorts until it becomes its own kind of sound. Vanessa came by yesterday evening. After you left. She said she wanted to see the dress, that she wanted to help steam it for you this morning as a surprise. I thought it was sweet. I let her take it upstairs to your old room. My throat closed. And? This morning when I went to check on it, the dress was on the floor. Natalie, it's destroyed. Someone cut it. The scissors were right there on the carpet. The room tilted. I pressed my free hand against the mattress to steady myself. Cut it? Into pieces. The bodice is separated from the skirt. The sleeves are in strips. I don't understand. The door was locked from the inside. Vanessa must have locked it when she left because I had to use the spare key this morning to get in. I couldn't speak. The words existed somewhere in my mind but refused to form on my tongue. 8 months of payments. $2,000. The dress I'd tried on 7 times before committing, the one Diane had promised to hold for me when I couldn't afford the deposit right away. The dress I'd imagined myself wearing while saying vows to Derek under the oak trees at the vineyard. Natalie? My mother's voice cracked. I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. Maybe someone broke in. Maybe it was an accident. Scissors don't accidentally cut a dress into pieces, Mom. I know. I know. I just don't want to believe that Vanessa would do something like this. I hung up without saying goodbye. My hands were still shaking. I called Derek. He answered with sleep in his voice, confused about why I was calling so early, and then alert when he heard the tone of my voice. I told him everything in short, clipped sentences. He was quiet for a long moment. I'm coming over, he said finally. The wedding is in 3 days. I know. We'll figure it out. But I barely heard him. I was already scrolling through my contacts, finding Diane's number, praying she'd answer even though the boutique didn't open for another 2 hours. The call went to voicemail. I left a message, my voice steadier than I felt, explaining what happened and asking if there was any way to find another dress in time. Then I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the wall. I didn't cry. Crying felt too small for what I was feeling. This wasn't sadness. It was a cold, clarifying rage that settled into my bones like frost. Derek arrived 20 minutes later with coffee and a fierce expression. He sat beside me and took my hand. "We're going to fix this." "How?" "I don't know yet. But we will." By 8 in the morning, I was in my car driving to my parents' house. Derek sat in the passenger seat, quiet and solid. The streets were still wet from overnight rain, the sky a flat gray that matched my mood. When we pulled into the driveway, my mother was already waiting on the porch, her face pale and drawn. She led us upstairs without a word. My old bedroom looked exactly as I'd left it the day before, except for the garment bag lying open on the bed and the wreckage spread across the floor. I stepped inside and knelt down, touching the fabric with careful fingers. The lace sleeves had been cut away from the bodice. The skirt was separated into panels. Even the buttons down the back had been removed and scattered across the carpet like small accusations. This wasn't rage. This was calculated. Someone had taken their time. Derek stood in the doorway, his jaw tight. My mother hovered behind him, wringing her hands. "I called Vanessa this morning," she said quietly. She didn't answer. I picked up the scissors. They were fabric shears, professional grade, the kind with orange handles that cost $60 at the craft store. I'd seen a pair just like them in Vanessa's house the last time I visited, sitting on her desk next to her ring light and camera equipment. She used them to open packages for her unboxing videos. "These aren't yours," I said to my mother. She shook her head. "I've never seen them before." I stood up, still holding the scissors, and walked past both of them down the hallway to the guest room. My mother followed, protesting softly that she didn't understand what I was looking for. I went straight to the closet, the one where my mother stored out-of-season clothes and old formal wear. I pulled open the door and started moving hangers aside, searching. And there it was. Still wrapped in plastic. Still pristine. The Vera Wang gown Vanessa had worn once for a photo shoot and then archived like a museum piece. $40,000 of ivory silk and hand-beaded lace. The tags were still attached to the interior seam, small paper rectangles that documented its value like a price tag in a gallery. I pulled it off the rack. My mother gasped behind me. "Natalie, that's your sister's dress. You can't just take it." I turned to face her, the gown heavy in my arms. "She destroyed mine." "You don't know that for sure." "Yes, I do." Derek had followed us down the hall. He looked at the dress, then at me, and something passed between us without words. He nodded once. "Mom," I said, my voice calmer than I felt. "Call Vanessa right now. Tell her what happened to my dress. Tell her I'm here. See if she answers." My mother hesitated, then pulled out her phone with trembling fingers. She dialed. We all stood there in the hallway, listening to it ring. Once. Twice. 3 times. Then Vanessa's voicemail, her bright recorded voice asking the caller to leave a message. My mother tried again. Same result. I carried the dress downstairs. My mother trailed behind me, her voice rising in pitch. "Natalie, please. We can call the boutique. We can find another dress. You can't just take Vanessa's gown." "Why not?" I stopped at the bottom of the stairs and turned to face her. She took mine. "We don't know that." "Then where is she?" My mother had no answer. Derek opened the front door for me and I walked out into the cool morning air, the dress still cocooned in its plastic protection. I laid it carefully across the back seat of my car, the same way I'd carried my own dress just 24 hours earlier. The symmetry wasn't lost on me. Derek drove. I sat in the passenger seat and called Diane again. This time she answered, her voice warm and concerned. I explained what happened, speaking slowly to keep my voice from breaking. She was quiet for a long moment after I finished. "Natalie, I'm so sorry. That's just cruel. Can you do anything?" Do you have anything else in my size? Not in 3 days. Everything would need alterations. But listen, bring me what's left of the dress. Let me see if any of it can be salvaged. We drove straight to Blanc and Company. Diane met us at the door even though the shop wasn't officially open yet. I handed her the garment bag with the destroyed dress inside. She laid it out on the counter, examining each piece with the focused attention of a surgeon. After several minutes, she looked up and shook her head. I can't fix this. Not in time. I'm sorry. I nodded. I'd expected as much. Thank you for trying. She studied my face, then glanced at Derek. Do you have a backup plan? Working on it. We left the boutique and sat in the car for a while without speaking. Derek's hand found mine. What do you want to do? I thought about Vanessa's dress hanging in my parents' guest closet for the past year, a trophy she'd never wear again but refused to part with. I thought about the magazine feature, the Instagram posts, the endless photos of her twirling in $40,000 of designer craftsmanship. I thought about my own dress, the one I'd saved for, the one that had felt like mine, reduced to scraps on my childhood bedroom floor. I want to get married in her dress. Derek didn't look shocked. He just squeezed my hand. You sure? She destroyed something I worked for. I'm going to wear something she didn't. Your family is going to lose their minds. They already lost them if they think this is acceptable. We drove back to my parents' house. My mother's car was still in the driveway, but I didn't go inside. Instead, I texted her from the car. I'm taking the Vera Wang. Tell Vanessa she can have what's left of mine. She called immediately. I declined it. She called again. I declined again. Then came the texts, rapid and panicked. Natalie, please don't do this. That dress cost a fortune. It's not yours. Please just wait and we'll figure this out. Your father is going to be so upset. I turned my phone face down and didn't respond. Derek was watching me carefully. You okay? I will be. That afternoon, I took the Vera Wang to a seamstress I'd worked with before on a design project. Her name was Lynn, a small woman in her 60s who ran an alteration shop out of a converted house in southeast Portland. She looked at the dress with wide eyes when I unwrapped it. This is Vera Wang. I know. This is couture. I know. She touched the fabric reverently. Where did you get this? It's my sister's. She's not using it anymore. Lynn didn't ask questions. She'd been doing this long enough to recognize family drama when she saw it. She took my measurements, examined the dress carefully, and told me she could have it altered by Saturday morning if I was willing to pay rush fees. I agreed immediately. Money didn't matter anymore. This wasn't about the dress. This was about refusing to let Vanessa win. I left the shop and drove to my apartment. Derek had gone back to his best man's place to keep up the tradition of not seeing each other before the wedding, but he'd texted me 3 times in the past hour to check if I was okay. I responded each time with the same message. I'm fine. I promise. I wasn't fine. I was furious. But fury had a clarity to it that grief didn't. Fury could be channeled. Fury could be useful. That evening, my father called. His voice was stern when I answered. Natalie, your mother told me what you did. You need to return your sister's dress immediately. Did she tell you what Vanessa did? Your mother said there was an accident. An accident. I laughed, sharp and humorless. Dad, my dress was cut into pieces with scissors. That's not an accident. We don't know it was Vanessa. Then who was it? Mom said she was the last person in that room. He was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was softer. Even if it was her, 2 wrongs don't make a right. That dress is worth more than your car. So my dress didn't matter because it wasn't expensive enough? That's not what I'm saying. Then what are you saying? He sighed, the same tired sound I'd heard my entire childhood whenever I pushed back against something unreasonable. I'm saying that family is more important than a dress. Either dress. You're making this into something bigger than it needs to be. I hung up on him. My hands were shaking again, but this time it wasn't from shock. It was from the realization that nothing had changed. Vanessa could destroy something I'd worked months to afford and it would be dismissed as an accident, but me taking her dress that she'd worn once and forgotten about was somehow a cardinal sin. The double standard had always been there. I'd just been too busy trying to earn their approval to see it clearly. I called Trish, my college roommate and one of my bridesmaids. She answered with her usual warmth, asking how the final preparations were going. I told her everything. She listened without interrupting, which was one of the things I'd always loved about her. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Nat, I'm going to say something and I need you to hear me. Okay. Your sister has been doing this to you your entire life. This is just the first time it's been this obvious. I pressed my fingers against my eyes. I know. Do you? Because you've spent years making excuses for her. For all of them. And I get it. They're your family. But family doesn't mean you have to set yourself on fire to keep them warm. I'm not doing that anymore. Good. Wear the dress. Get married. Be happy. And if they can't handle it, that's their problem, not yours. After we hung up, I sat on my couch in the growing darkness and let myself feel the weight of everything. 3 days until my wedding. No parents who believed me. No sister who would apologize. No dress that was actually mine. Just a borrowed gown that cost more than I made in 6 months and a stubborn refusal to let any of them ruin the one day that was supposed to be about me and Derek. My phone buzzed with another text from my mother. Please call me. We need to talk about this like adults. I deleted it without responding. I was done talking. I'd spent my entire life talking, explaining, justifying, trying to make them see me. It never worked. They saw what they wanted to see. Vanessa, the successful influencer with the perfect life. Me, the quiet one who should be grateful for whatever scraps of attention they threw my way. But I wasn't invisible anymore. And I wasn't going to disappear just because it made them uncomfortable. The next morning, I went to the vineyard to do a final walkthrough with the coordinator. The property looked exactly how I'd imagined it, the oak trees golden in the autumn light, the tables set with mismatched china and mason jars of wildflowers. Iris, the photographer, was there testing angles and lighting. She smiled when she saw me. You ready for tomorrow? Getting there. She must have seen something in my expression because her smile softened. Everything okay? I hesitated, then decided there was no point in pretending. My sister destroyed my wedding dress 2 days ago. I'm wearing hers instead. Iris blinked. That's dramatic. That's my family. She studied me for a moment, then nodded slowly. Well, if the photos turn out half as interesting as that story, we're going to have something special. I laughed despite myself. That's one way to look at it. That afternoon, I picked up the altered dress from Lynn. She'd worked some kind of magic, taking in the bodice to fit my smaller frame and adjusting the length so it wouldn't drag on the ground. The dress fit perfectly, the silk cool against my skin, the beading catching the light like scattered stars. I looked at myself in the mirror of her fitting room and barely recognized the woman staring back. This wasn't the dress I'd chosen. But somehow, standing there in $40,000 of couture that my sister would never wear again, I felt more myself than I had in months. Lynn handed me the garment bag with careful hands. You look beautiful. Thank you. For everything. One question, if you don't mind. Sure. Does your sister know you're wearing her dress? I smiled, thin and sharp. Not yet. I spent Friday morning confirming details I'd already confirmed twice. Calling the caterer to verify the vegetarian options. Texting the string quartet about their arrival time. Checking with the venue coordinator about the backup plan if it rained, even though the forecast showed clear skies. Anything to keep my hands busy and my mind from circling back to the same question I'd been avoiding for 2 days. What would happen when Vanessa found out? Derek came over around noon with sandwiches from the deli near his office. We ate on my apartment balcony, the October air cool but not cold, the city stretching out below us in shades of gray and green. He'd been quieter than usual since Thursday, watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "You can say it," I told him, setting down my half-eaten sandwich. "Say what?" "Whatever you're thinking. You've had that look since yesterday." He leaned back in his chair, considering. "I'm not worried about the dress. I'm worried about you." "I'm fine. Nat, your sister destroyed something you spent 8 months paying for, your parents are pretending it might have been an accident, and you're about to walk down the aisle in a gown that's going to cause a nuclear meltdown in your family. You're allowed to not be fine." I picked at the edge of my napkin. "If I stop moving, I'll fall apart. So I'm not going to stop moving." He reached across the small table and took my hand. "Tomorrow, after we're married, you can fall apart if you need to. I'll be there to catch you." I squeezed his fingers. "I know." That afternoon, Trish came over to help me pack for the honeymoon. She'd flown in from Seattle the night before and was staying at a hotel near the airport. When I opened the door, she took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug without saying a word. We stood there in my doorway for a long moment, her arms solid around me, before she finally pulled back. "Okay," she said, her voice brisk and practical. "Show me this dress." I led her to my bedroom where the garment bag hung on the back of my closet door. She unzipped it slowly, her eyes widening as more of the gown became visible. When it was fully revealed, she let out a low whistle. "This is the one from her wedding." "Yep. The one she posted about for 3 months straight." "That's the one." Trish touched the beading carefully, the same way Lynn had, with a kind of reverence. "Nat, this is incredible. But are you sure? Your family is going to implode. They already did. This is just making it visible." She turned to look at me, her expression serious. "You know I support you no matter what. But I need to ask. Are you doing this because you want to, or because you want to hurt her?" I considered the question honestly. "Both." "Is that terrible?" "No. It's human." She zipped the bag back up. "Just make sure you're ready for the fallout. Because there will be fallout. I've spent my entire life managing their feelings. I'm done. Tomorrow is about me and Derek. If they can't handle that, they don't have to come." Trish smiled, sad and proud at the same time. "There she is. I was wondering when you'd show up." We spent the rest of the afternoon packing and talking, avoiding the subject of my family entirely. She told me about her new position at the hospital, a promotion she'd been working toward for years. I told her about a project at work, a rebranding campaign for a local nonprofit that had just won a design award. Normal things. Good things. The kind of conversation that reminded me my life was bigger than this one dramatic moment. Around 5, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Is this Natalie Harper?" A woman's voice, professional and slightly cautious. "Yes. This is Angela from Blanc & Company. Diane asked me to call you. We found something when we were cleaning up the remains of your dress." My stomach tightened. "What did you find?" "A small camera. It was tucked into the lining of the garment bag. Battery operated, motion activated. It looks like it was recording." I sat down on the edge of my bed. Trish watched me, her expression shifting to concern. "A camera. We've already called the police. They're treating it as evidence. But Diane thought you should know right away. The timestamp shows it was placed there Wednesday afternoon. The same day Vanessa had supposedly come to my parents' house to help with the dress. The same day she'd locked herself in my childhood bedroom. The pieces aligned with a clarity that made my chest hurt. "Thank you for calling." I'm so sorry this happened to you. If there's anything else we can do. You've done more than enough. I hung up and looked at Trish. There was a camera in my dress bag. Someone planted it Wednesday. Vanessa. Had to be. Why would she record herself destroying your dress? I thought about that. Maybe she didn't know it was there. Maybe she just wanted to spy on me getting ready, see my reaction to something. Or maybe she's so used to documenting everything for content that she didn't even think about it. Trish shook her head slowly. That's disturbing. That's my sister. My phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. I opened it and felt my blood go cold. It was a screenshot from Instagram, Vanessa's profile, showing a post from 20 minutes ago. The image was a close-up of fabric, lace and silk, expensive looking and elegant. The caption read, "Some things are too precious to share. Family heirlooms deserve protection. Trust is earned, not assumed." I showed Trish. She read it twice, her jaw tightening. She knows. My mother must have told her. What are you going to do? I looked at the garment bag hanging on my closet door, then back at my phone. Vanessa's post already had hundreds of likes, dozens of comments from followers who had no idea what they were actually responding to. I could see a few that had already been pinned to the top. Your family is so lucky to have you. Gorgeous. Is this a sneak peek of something new? Can't wait to see what you're working on next. I opened Instagram and started typing. No photo. Just words. Tomorrow I'm marrying the love of my life in a beautiful vineyard surrounded by people who actually showed up when it mattered. Some of you might notice the dress looks familiar. That's because it is. My original gown was destroyed 2 days before my wedding. But I'm resourceful, and I don't believe in letting people who want to hurt me win. See you all on the other side. I read it 3 times, deleted it twice, and finally hit post before I could overthink it further. Trish watched over my shoulder. You just declared war. She started it when she cut up my dress. Fair point. Within minutes, my phone started buzzing. Comments flooded in, confused and concerned. Direct messages from people I hadn't spoken to in years. 3 missed calls from my mother. A text from my father that just said, "Call me immediately." I turned my phone face down and left it on the nightstand. I'm not doing this tonight, I told Trish. Tonight is about getting through the rehearsal dinner without losing my mind. Tomorrow I'll deal with whatever comes next. The rehearsal dinner was at a small restaurant in downtown Portland, a place Derek and I had gone on our 3rd date. I'd invited 15 people. My parents, who'd confirmed they'd be there despite everything. Derek's parents and his younger brother. My bridesmaids, Trish and Sophia, a neighbor who'd become a close friend over the past 2 years. Derek's groomsmen. A few other close friends. Vanessa hadn't been invited. That decision had been made weeks ago, long before the dress incident. She'd made it clear she was too busy to participate in any wedding activities, so I'd stopped including her in them. I arrived early with Derek, both of us dressed casually, trying to project a calm neither of us felt. His parents were already there, his mother greeting me with a warm hug that lasted longer than usual. She didn't mention the Instagram post. Maybe she hadn't seen it. Maybe she had and was being kind enough not to bring it up. My parents arrived 10 minutes late. They walked in together, my mother's face tight with stress, my father's expression unreadable. They said hello to Derek's parents, made small talk about the weather and the drive, and then my mother pulled me aside near the bar. We need to talk about your post. Not tonight. Natalie, you're embarrassing the whole family. I posted the truth. If that's embarrassing, maybe you should ask yourselves why. You made it sound like Vanessa destroyed your dress on purpose. She did. You don't know that. I looked at her directly. Mom, they found a camera in my garment bag. It was planted Wednesday. The police have it now. Her face went pale. A camera? Motion activated. Someone put it there to record. Want to guess who had access to my dress Wednesday afternoon? She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. That doesn't prove anything. It proves enough. I walked away before she could respond, rejoining Derek at our table. He took my hand under the table and squeezed once. The rest of the dinner passed in a blur of forced conversation and careful avoidance. My father gave a short toast about marriage being hard work. Derek's father gave a longer, warmer one about how happy he was to welcome me into their family. I smiled and nodded and tried to ignore the way my mother kept glancing at her phone. Vanessa didn't show up. I hadn't expected her to. But around dessert, my phone buzzed with a new Instagram notification. She'd posted again. This time it was a throwback photo from her wedding, her in the Vera Wang gown, spinning in a field with the sun behind her. The caption, "Some moments are too sacred to repeat. Grateful for memories that can never be replaced or replicated." Trish leaned over to see what I was looking at. She's really digging in. Let her. You're not going to respond? Why would I? Tomorrow everyone will see the dress for themselves. I don't need to explain anything. After dinner, Derek walked me to my car. The street was quiet, the October night clear and cold. He wrapped his arms around me and I let myself lean into him, breathing in the familiar scent of his cologne. "Last night before you're stuck with me forever," he said into my hair. "Can't wait." He pulled back to look at my face. "You sure you're ready for tomorrow?" I've never been more sure of anything. I'm not talking about marrying me. I'm talking about everything else. I knew what he meant. The dress. The family. The inevitable confrontation when they saw me walk down the aisle in Vanessa's gown. I'm ready. Whatever happens, we'll handle it together. He kissed me, gentle and sure. "See you at the altar." I drove home alone, the city lights blurring past my windows. My apartment felt too quiet when I walked in, too empty. I took a long shower, letting the hot water ease the tension in my shoulders. When I got out, I checked my phone one last time. 43 new Instagram comments. 12 direct messages. 6 missed calls. And 1 text from a number I didn't recognize. "You always were the jealous one. Enjoy your stolen moment. It won't last." I didn't need to ask who it was from. I blocked the number and turned off my phone entirely. Tomorrow was my wedding day. Tomorrow I would wear a dress worth more than my car and say vows to a man who loved me without conditions. Tomorrow my family would have to sit with the consequences of their choices. Tomorrow I would stop being the daughter who bent herself into shapes to earn love that should have been freely given. I set my alarm and climbed into bed. Sleep came surprisingly easy. Maybe because for the first time in my life, I wasn't lying awake wondering if I'd done enough to make them proud. I already knew the answer. Nothing would ever be enough. So I'd stop trying. And in that surrender, I'd found something better than their approval. I'd found my own. The morning of my wedding dawned clear and bright, the kind of October day that feels like a gift. I woke up before my alarm, my heart steady and calm. Trish arrived at 8 with coffee and pastries from the bakery down the street. Sophia showed up 20 minutes later with my bouquet, white roses and eucalyptus tied with silk ribbon. We got ready slowly, carefully. Trish did my makeup, keeping it natural and soft. Sophia helped with my hair, pinning it up in a loose twist with a few strands left down to frame my face. I stepped into the Vera Wang gown and stood still while they fastened the dozens of tiny buttons down the back. When they were done, I turned to look at myself in the full-length mirror. The woman looking back was someone I barely recognized. Not because I looked different, but because I looked like myself. Completely. Unapologetically. The dress fit like it had been made for me, the silk skimming my body, the beading catching the morning light through my bedroom window. "Nat," Sophia breathed. "You look incredible." Trish was smiling, her eyes suspiciously bright. "Derek is going to lose his mind." I touched the fabric carefully, still half expecting to wake up and find this was a dream. But it wasn't. This was real. This was happening. In 2 hours, I would be married. And my family could either accept that or not. Either way, I was done waiting for their permission to be happy. My phone, which I'd turned back on that morning, buzzed with a call from my mother. I declined it. She called again. I declined again. Then a text appeared. Please don't do this. Think about your sister. Think about the family. I replied with 4 words. I am. See you there. Then I picked up my bouquet, looked at my friends, and smiled. Let's go get married. The drive to the vineyard took 40 minutes. Trish drove while Sophia sat in back with me, making sure the dress didn't wrinkle. We didn't talk much. There wasn't anything left to say. Every decision had been made. Every choice had led to this moment. When we pulled up to the venue, Iris was already there, adjusting her camera equipment near the arbor where the ceremony would take place. The coordinator, a woman named Helen who'd been managing vineyard events for 15 years, hurried over to meet us. Natalie, you look stunning. We're right on schedule. The guests are starting to arrive. Do you want to wait in the bridal suite until it's time? I nodded. The bridal suite was a converted barn office, rustic but charming, with exposed beams and windows overlooking the valley. Trish and Sophia settled me on the velvet couch while they went to check on final details. I sat alone in the dress, my bouquet in my lap, listening to the muffled sounds of arrival outside. Car doors closing. Voices greeting each other. The string quartet warming up. Helen knocked softly before entering. Your parents just arrived. They're asking to see you before the ceremony. Tell them I'll see them at their seats. She hesitated. Your mother is quite insistent. I know. The answer is still no. Helen nodded and left. I could hear her speaking to someone in the hallway, my mother's voice rising slightly before being hushed. Then footsteps retreating. I closed my eyes and took a long breath. This was supposed to be the peaceful part. The quiet moment before everything changed. Instead, it felt like standing in the eye of a storm, knowing the winds would start again any second. Iris knocked and entered with her camera. Mind if I get a few shots of you before we start? Go ahead. She moved around the room, capturing me from different angles. Through the window. Adjusting my bouquet. Looking down at my hands. She worked silently, her presence calming rather than intrusive. After a few minutes, she lowered her camera. Can I ask you something personal? Sure. That dress. It's the one your sister wore at her wedding, isn't it? I photographed that event. I met her eyes. Yes. I heard rumors about what happened to your original gown. Just rumors, but still. They're probably true. She was quiet for a moment, studying my face. For what it's worth, this dress looks better on you. Your sister wore it like armor. You're wearing it like freedom. Something in my chest loosened slightly. Thank you. The truth makes better photographs anyway. Always has. She left to set up for the ceremony. Trish returned with water and a knowing look. Your mom tried to get past Helen. Helen is a brick wall. I like her. Me too. Derek's in position. The officiant is ready. We're about 10 minutes out. I stood, smoothing the silk over my hips. Trish adjusted my veil, a simple cathedral-length piece I'd borrowed from Derek's mother. Sophia handed me my bouquet and squeezed my arm. You ready? I am. We walked out of the bridal suite together, Trish and Sophia in their mismatched bridesmaid dresses, me in $40,000 of silk and beading that should have felt wrong but somehow felt exactly right. The ceremony space was arranged in a semicircle around the arbor, chairs set up on either side of a grassy aisle scattered with fallen oak leaves. 60 guests, most of them already seated, turned as we approached. I could see my parents in the third row on the left. My mother's face was pale and tight. My father sat rigid beside her, staring straight ahead. Neither of them smiled. On the right side, Derek's family took up the first 2 rows, his mother already dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. Mrs. Kimura, my old art teacher, sat near the back. She waved slightly when she caught my eye. Dr. Brennan was there with his wife. Mr. Caldwell, the retired coach who'd let me use the school track after hours when I needed to run off steam during high school. Trish's partner. Sophia's husband. Friends from work. People who'd shown up. And there, standing at the altar in a gray suit, was Derek. He saw me and his entire face transformed. I watched him take a breath, watched his hand come up to press against his chest like he was trying to keep his heart from escaping. His best man, a guy named Ryan, clapped him on the shoulder. The string quartet began playing. Some classical piece I'd chosen months ago, something that sounded like hope and new beginnings. Trish and Sophia walked down the aisle first, taking their places on either side of the arbor. Then it was my turn. I should have had my father walk me down the aisle. That was the plan, made months ago when I'd still believed things might be different this time. But that plan had died along with my original dress. So I walked alone, carrying my bouquet, my head up, my steps measured and sure. I was halfway down the aisle when I heard it. My mother's voice, not quite a whisper, cutting through the music. That's Vanessa's dress. She took Vanessa's dress. Heads turned. Confused murmurs rippled through the guests. I kept walking. My eyes stayed on Derek, who was watching me like I was the only person in the world. When I reached the arbor, he took my hand and leaned close. "You look perfect," he whispered. "So do you." The officiant, a kind-faced man named Pastor Murray, smiled at both of us. "Shall we begin?" The ceremony itself passed in a strange blur of hyper-clarity and dreamlike softness. I heard every word of Pastor Murray's opening remarks about love and commitment. I felt every squeeze of Derek's hand. But I was also distantly aware of my mother's rigid posture, the way other guests kept glancing at her, the whispered explanations spreading through the crowd. When it came time for the vows, Derek went first. He'd written his own, words about choosing each other every day, about building something that was ours and nobody else's, about loving me exactly as I was. His voice caught on the last line. "I promise to always see you, Natalie. Even when others don't. Especially then." I squeezed his hands, blinking back tears. Then it was my turn. I'd written mine late last night, sitting on my apartment floor, trying to put into words what this moment meant. Derek, standing here today, took more courage than I expected. Not because I doubted us, but because I had to let go of a lot of things to get here. Old patterns. Old beliefs about what love should look like. The need to earn something that should be freely given. I paused, feeling my throat tighten. "You taught me that love isn't about being perfect or fitting into someone else's expectations. It's about showing up honestly and being met with the same honesty in return. I promise to show up for you every day. To choose you. To build a life that's ours. And to never apologize for taking up space in my own story." Someone in the crowd sniffled. Derek was smiling, his eyes bright with unshed tears. Pastor Murray looked between us with obvious warmth. "By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Derek, you may kiss your bride." Derek pulled me close, his hand cupping my face, and kissed me while our guests applauded. It was soft and sure and perfect. When we pulled apart, he was grinning. "Mrs. Natalie Brennan has a nice ring to it. I'm keeping Harper, actually. Even better. Ready to face them? With you? Always." We turned to walk back down the aisle together. The guests stood, still applauding. I saw Iris moving through the crowd, capturing reactions. Mrs. Kimura was beaming. Dr. Brennan gave me a subtle thumbs up. Derek's mother was fully crying now, happy tears that made her mascara run. And there was my mother, standing stiffly, her hands clenched at her sides. My father had an arm around her shoulder, his expression unreadable. They weren't applauding. They weren't smiling. They were just watching, frozen in whatever complicated mix of emotions had rendered them immobile. I looked at them as Derek and I passed, really looked, and felt something I hadn't expected. Not anger. Not satisfaction. Just a quiet, settled sadness for what could have been if they'd made different choices. Then we were past them, moving toward the reception area, and the moment released me. The reception was set up under the oak trees, string lights already twinkling even though it was only late afternoon. The mismatched china looked exactly how I'd imagined, charming and imperfect and real. Our first dance song started playing and Derek pulled me onto the small wooden dance floor. "How are you feeling?" he asked as we swayed together. "Like I just did something I can't take back." "Regrets?" "Not even one." We danced through the whole song, and then his parents joined us, and then Trish and Sophia and their partners, until the dance floor was full of people celebrating with genuine joy. The energy was warm and easy, the kind of reception where people actually wanted to be there rather than fulfilling an obligation. Dinner was served family style, platters passed around tables, conversation flowing naturally. I sat with Derek, his hand resting on my knee under the table, and felt more settled than I had in days. This was what I'd wanted. Not a performance. Not a spectacle. Just people who cared about us sharing a meal and marking a moment that mattered. My parents sat at their assigned table with a few of Derek's extended family members who were trying valiantly to make conversation. My mother picked at her food. My father drank his wine steadily. Neither of them came over to congratulate us. During dinner, Helen approached our table discreetly. "Natalie, there's a situation." My stomach dropped. What kind of situation? Someone arrived who wasn't on the guest list. "She's at the gate demanding entry. Says she's your sister." Derek's hand tightened on my knee. I set down my fork carefully. "Tell security not to let her in. She's making quite a scene. Claims she has every right to be here because it's a family event. She wasn't invited. She doesn't get to show up and demand entry." Helen nodded. "I'll handle it. Just wanted you to know." She left. I sat very still, trying to process. Vanessa was here. She'd driven over an hour to crash my wedding. My wedding where I was wearing her dress. Trish leaned over from the next table. "I heard. Want me to go out there?" "No. Stay here. Enjoy dinner. This isn't your problem to solve." "Nat, she destroyed your dress. She planted a camera. She's been posting passive-aggressive Instagram stories for 2 days. She's made it very clear this is personal." "I know. But I'm not giving her the satisfaction of reacting. Security can handle it." 10 minutes later, Helen returned. She left. But she took photos of the venue's sign and posted them to social media with some concerning language. "Just wanted you to be aware." I thanked her and tried to refocus on dinner, but my phone started buzzing in my small clutch purse. I pulled it out. Instagram notifications. Dozens of them. I opened the app. Vanessa had posted a photo of the vineyard's entrance sign with the caption, "When family betrays you, showing up is the only option." Some theft can't be ignored. Some boundaries exist to be crossed. The comments were already piling up. Her followers, confused and concerned, asking what was wrong. A few people who knew both of us chiming in with carefully worded questions. And then, buried in the middle, a comment from someone named Jennifer who I didn't recognize. "Maybe if you hadn't destroyed her original dress, she wouldn't have needed yours." I stared at that comment. Then scrolled up to see the username. Jennifer Martinez. The boutique assistant from Blanc & Company. The one who'd called me about the camera. She'd posted a reply to Vanessa. On Vanessa's own Instagram. Where all her followers could see it. "This is Jennifer from Blanc & Co. Bridal. I'm the one who found the hidden camera in Natalie's destroyed wedding dress. The same dress that was cut to pieces while in your care. The police have the footage. Your attempt to play victim is noted. My hand started shaking. Derek leaned over to see what I was looking at. He read the exchange and let out a low breath. Well, that just happened. I didn't ask her to do that. I know. But I'm glad she did. The comments under Vanessa's post exploded. People demanding explanations. Others defending her blindly. A few mutual acquaintances weighing in with cryptic statements. Within minutes, Vanessa deleted the entire post. But the internet doesn't forget. Screenshots were already circulating. I put my phone away. My appetite was gone, but I forced myself to take a few more bites, to laugh at Derek's best man's toast, to cut the cake we'd chosen together from a small bakery in northeast Portland. I was determined not to let Vanessa's presence, even from outside the gates, ruin this day. As the sun began to set, casting everything in golden light, Iris gathered Derek and me for photos. We walked through the vineyard rows, the grapevines heavy with late-season fruit, the light perfect. She captured us laughing, kissing, holding hands, simply existing together in this moment we'd created despite everything. These are going to be stunning, Iris said, reviewing her camera screen. The dress photographs like a dream. It should for $40,000, I said wryly. She grinned. True. But it's not the dress that makes the photo. It's you. You're lit from the inside right now. We returned to the reception as the first stars appeared. The string quartet had been replaced by a playlist Derek and I had made together, songs that meant something to us, nothing too trendy or expected. People were dancing, talking, enjoying the evening. My parents left early. I watched them walk to their car without saying goodbye, my mother's back rigid, my father's hand on her elbow. They didn't stop to congratulate us. Didn't thank us for including them despite everything. Just left as silently as they'd sat through the ceremony. Mrs. Kimura came over as I watched them go. She put a gentle hand on my shoulder. You did good today, Natalie. Did I? Half my family hates me now. Half your family made choices that revealed who they really are. That's not the same thing as you doing something wrong. It feels wrong. I know. But feelings aren't facts. The fact is you got married to someone who loves you. The fact is you're surrounded by people who chose to show up. The fact is you're standing here in that dress, and you look absolutely radiant. Sometimes doing the right thing feels terrible. Doesn't make it any less right. She hugged me and moved away to talk to Dr. Brennan. I stood alone for a moment, watching my guests, watching Derek laughing with his brother, watching the lights twinkle in the trees. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I opened it. You looked ridiculous in my dress. Everyone was laughing. Hope it was worth destroying your family. I read it twice. Then I took a screenshot, forwarded it to the detective who'd been assigned to the dress destruction case, and blocked the number. Derek appeared beside me. You okay? Vanessa sent a message. What did it say? That everyone was laughing at me. He looked around at the reception, at the genuine smiles and joy on people's faces. Do you see anyone laughing? No. That's because she's lying. That's what people do when they're desperate to make you feel as bad as they do. I know. Come dance with me again. Your sister doesn't get any more of your attention today. He pulled me onto the dance floor. We swayed together under the trees, under the stars, surrounded by people who had earned their place in our lives. And for the first time all day, I felt completely, entirely at peace. The dress caught the light with every movement. $40,000 of silk and beading that Vanessa had worn once for photos and then archived like a museum piece. Now it was living. Moving. Celebrating. Being exactly what a wedding dress should be. Not a trophy. Not a status symbol. Just fabric that held joy. The wedding ended just after 10. Guests hugged us goodbye, Derek's mother crying again as she promised to call us the next day. Mrs. Kimura pressed a small envelope into my hand and told me not to open it until the honeymoon. Trish and Sophia helped me change out of the Vera Wang and into a simple sundress for the drive to our hotel near the coast. Before I left, I found Helen and asked her to box up the wedding dress. She looked at me curiously. Are you keeping it? No. I want it returned to my parents' house with a note. What should the note say? I thought for a moment. Tell Vanessa some things are only valuable when they mean something. This meant something to me for one day. It never meant anything to her. Helen nodded and promised to handle it personally. Derek and I drove to the coast that night, arriving at the cabin just after midnight. We were both exhausted, running on adrenaline and champagne. We collapsed into bed without unpacking, wrapped around each other, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on my shoulder. We did it, he murmured into the darkness. We really did. Any regrets? I thought about the question honestly. About my destroyed dress and my sister's fury and my parents' silent departure. About wearing a gown that wasn't mine to prove a point I'd never asked to make. About all the ways this day could have gone differently if my family had made different choices months or even years ago. No, I said finally. No regrets. We spent the week at the coast doing nothing productive. Walking on empty beaches. Reading books on the porch. Cooking simple meals in the cabin's small kitchen. Not checking social media. Not answering phones except to tell people we were alive and would talk when we got back. It was Mrs. Kimura's envelope, opened on the third day, that finally made me cry. Inside was a check for $2,000 and a note in her careful handwriting. For the dress that should have made it to your wedding. Use this however you want. You earned the right to choose. I showed Derek. He read it and pulled me close. That's the family you built. The one that shows up. On our last day at the coast, I finally opened Instagram. The notifications had piled into the hundreds. Vanessa had posted a long statement 2 days after the wedding, explaining that I'd stolen her dress without permission, that she was exploring legal options, that family betrayal was the deepest kind of pain. The comments were mixed. Some people believed her. Others had clearly done their research and found Jennifer's comment about the camera. A few mutual friends had publicly unfollowed her. More interesting were the messages. Former classmates sharing their own stories of Vanessa's cruelty. Distant cousins admitting they'd always noticed how differently our parents treated us. Even Blake's sister sent a message saying she'd tried to warn him about Vanessa's behavior but he hadn't listened. The detective handling the case called while we were packing to leave. The camera footage was clear. Vanessa entering my childhood bedroom. Locking the door. Pulling out the fabric shears. Methodically cutting the dress while talking to herself about how I'd always gotten away with things, how this would teach me, how nobody appreciated what she sacrificed for this family. We have enough for charges if you want to press them, the detective said. Destruction of property, possible stalking with the camera placement. It's your call. I looked at Derek. He shrugged. Your decision. I support whatever you choose. I thought about court dates and family drama and years of legal battles. What happens if I don't press charges? Nothing formal. But the footage exists. It's evidence. If she tries anything else, we have a pattern documented. Let's leave it there for now. But keep the file open. We drove back to Portland that afternoon. Our apartment felt different somehow, lighter, like something heavy had been lifted from the walls. Derek started unpacking while I sat on the couch checking messages. One from my mother. We need to talk about what you did. This has gone too far. I deleted it without responding. One from my father. Your sister is very hurt. I hope you're satisfied. Deleted. One from a number I didn't recognize. When I opened it, I saw it was from Blake. I owe you an apology. I didn't know what was happening until after the wedding. Vanessa told me your dress was damaged in shipping and you'd borrowed hers with permission. I'm sorry I didn't question it sooner. I stared at that message for a long time. Then I replied. Thank you for saying that. I hope you're taking care of yourself. 3 days later, the dress was returned to my parents' house with Helen's note attached. My mother called immediately. I let it go to voicemail. She called again. Voicemail again. Finally she texted. Vanessa is beside herself. How could you use her dress and then just return it like nothing happened? Do you have any idea what this has done to her? I replied with one sentence. She destroyed mine first. My mother's response came an hour later. She said it was an accident. Why can't you just believe her? I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. Derek and I settled back into our normal life. Work. Dinner together. Evenings on the couch planning future trips. The wedding photos arrived 3 weeks later. Iris had captured everything. The joy on Derek's face when he saw me. The moment Mrs. Kimura wiped tears from her eyes. The first dance. The golden light through the vineyard. And there, in the center of it all, was me in that dress. Not stolen. Not borrowed. Just worn by someone who refused to let cruelty win. I posted one photo to Instagram with a simple caption. Married my best friend surrounded by people who showed up when it mattered. That's the only family that counts. The likes and comments poured in. Support from people I barely knew. Messages from strangers saying my story gave them courage to set their own boundaries. A few critical voices claiming I was vindictive, but they were drowned out by overwhelming support. Vanessa never commented. Never messaged. Her account went quiet for weeks. 6 months later, I heard through a mutual acquaintance that she and Blake had separated. That her follower count had dropped significantly. That she'd moved out of Portland entirely. I felt nothing when I heard the news. Not satisfaction. Not sadness. Just the quiet certainty that some chapters close themselves. Derek and I bought a house that spring. Small, with a garden and a porch swing. We hosted our first dinner party in June, inviting Mrs. Kimura, Dr. Brennan, Trish and Sophia. We laughed and ate and made plans for the future. Nobody mentioned the wedding drama. It had become just another story, no longer the defining moment of our lives. My parents sent a card on my birthday. Generic. Unsigned except for their names. I put it in a drawer and didn't respond. The Vera Wang dress hung in my closet for a while, still in its box. Eventually I donated it to a charity that provided wedding dresses for military brides who couldn't afford them. Someone sent me a photo months later of a young woman wearing it at her ceremony, her face radiant with joy. That dress finally meant something to someone. Just not to the person who originally owned it. And me? I learned that family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up when everything falls apart. It's about who celebrates your joy without needing to diminish it. It's about choosing people who choose you back. I chose Derek. I chose my friends. I chose myself. And I've never looked back. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.